On behalf of Namita Gokhale, William Dalrymple, and all my colleagues at Teamwork Arts, welcome back to JLF's Brave New World. Our magazine partner for this series is The Week, Journalism with a Human Touch. Even as we've completed over 110 episodes with over 3.4 million views, it is our endeavor to replay some of the very best sessions which you may have missed during the season of JLF's Brave New World. Our first session today on this Redux series is on friendship, Gloria Steinem and Ruchira Gupta. This session in partnership with the Asia Society in New York and the Asia Society in India. Friendship is a country separated by continents, 30 years apart in age, different in birth cultures and languages. Gloria and Ruchira will talk about how and why their lives are interwoven in an adventure of friendship. Gloria Steinem is a writer, political activist, and feminist organizer. She was a founder of New York and MS magazines and is the author of The Truth Will Set You Free, but First It Will Piss You Off, My Life on the Road, Moving Beyond Words, Revolution from Within, and Outrageous Acts and Everyday Rebellions, all published in the United States and in India. As If Women Matters, in 2019, she received the Freedom Award from the National Civil Rights Museum. She is the subject of Julie Taymor's upcoming biopic, The Glorias, set to premiere in fall 2020. Ruchira Gupta is an Emmy-winning journalist and activist. She is the founder of the anti-sex trafficking organization, Apne Aap, that has helped thousands of prostituted and at-risk girls in India and USA. As you're aware, all our sessions are available to view on our Facebook page, JLF LitFest, and on our YouTube channel, Jaipur LitFest JLF. In case any of you drop off due to bandwidth issues, you can find us on our YouTube channel, Jaipur LitFest. And of course, if we drop off, hang on there and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, on friendship, Gloria Steinem and Ruchira Gupta in conversation.
Good morning and namaste from India, Gloria. It's wonderful to be here with you virtually, if not in person. And thank you, Shonjoy and JLF, for enabling this possibility so that Gloria and I can at least see each other and talk about something which is part of our lives, the fabric of our lives, which is friendship. And, I've known Gloria for a long time. And initially, when I got my first email from her, decades ago, I was a bit intimidated when she said she's coming to India and wants to see me, because I thought I've got nothing to show Gloria. But there was Gloria who got into an auto rickshaw with me. I took her to a slum in Delhi. There were like 10 or 15 women standing there to listen to us. And I was thinking, Gloria knows English. She's from so far away. How am I going to organize this communication? And then Gloria spoke about the fact about how she came to India as a young woman. She was trying to have an abortion and she didn't want to get married to the man she was thinking of getting married to. And she came to India to look for new things, new possibilities. And she connected with the women on that basic truth, because for a long time she said she would not talk about the fact that she'd had an abortion. And then she attended, as a journalist many years later, a circle of women who were talking about all the difficulties they had having an abortion. And instantly those women in the slum connected to Gloria because her truth was their truth. And I saw that magic moment, and that magic moment became so profound for me that I became part of a circle which just kept expanding as I got to know Gloria, from activists in the United States to activists in Morocco to people she puts me in touch with when I go to Thailand. And friendship has become an adventure and a circle with Gloria. It's fun. We write together. We exchange notes. I call her in the middle of the night when I have some survivor of prostitution who's arrested, and she tells me what to do. And sometimes I just call her to discuss ideas. And it's so wonderful knowing you, Gloria. And it's just such one of the most important relationships in my life. My first question to you is that here we are talking across generations, countries, cultures. Why did you even think that you could reach out to someone much younger and befriend someone who you didn't know, and how did this happen?
Well, I think friendship is a country. of its own worldwide. It's partly shared interests and shared work and shared values. I knew about your amazing work, for which I have such awe and respect. I had read your words, so it seemed to me that we were already part of the same country in a way of shared purpose and activism and caring. And I just wanted to meet you because I admired your work, I admired your values, I admired your work. So I felt exactly the same about you. I have to say I have very little faith in national boundaries, which are kind of new in human history. We've probably been wandering around this globe since the globe existed, right? But I have great faith in the country of friendship.
I've noticed that, and then sometimes I've joked with you that, we could form a political party of your friends and friends' children. And as I've wandered through the world with you, I've met them and seen how they connect with you. You form the most unlikely friends. I remember we were in a hospital at one point and you were talking to the nurses and exchanging notes with them, and you stayed in touch with that person. Or we have two of your friends who are listening in today, Devaki Jain and Ela Bhatt. These are old friendships which have lasted 50 years, 60 years. And what do these friendships mean to you? How have they influenced you?
Actually, it's true that, because I first went to India and stayed there for 2 years right after I graduated from college, my oldest continuous friends in the world, like Devaki, like you, are in India, actually, more than here. I mean, remember that I am not even a 60s person. I'm so old, I'm a 50s person. and the 50s in this country were a time of great conformity. And there was no women's movement and not yet even a civil rights movement. So it wasn't until I journeyed to India that I found shared caring and hopes of what could be. And in a way, that's what inspired me to come home and look for similar people here. So in a way, it was the other way around. India helped me discover that there were movements and that I could have friends of shared purpose.
In the movie The Glorias, there's an instance where you go in a sari, in a train to a village in India. Somebody, you try to go with a bag, and the older woman there says that you don't need the bag. You have too much baggage in the West.
Yes, right. No, it's because there were then sad caste riots going on, and there had been from this the place I was visiting, there had been teams of people going out to walk through this area of Ramnad, and everyone had already left, and they just needed a woman, any woman, to go with the one remaining man, so that women would feel okay in the villages about coming out to meetings. And I said, but won't it be odd, here I am, an American. I was wearing a sari and so on, but clearly I was an American. And they said, no, it would be just as odd if you came from New Delhi. So that began an adventure of walking from village to village, holding meetings to try to say to people, no, the riots that are going on are, people know about it, and the outside, we care about you, all of that, just to bring people out for meetings at night. And that was a lesson in Gandhian style organizing that I never forgot, and that helped me in different ways when I came home. So, once again, India instructed me in a way that I could communicate and transfer to movement activities when I came home.
What is Gandhian style organizing, and how does it translate to the feminist movement?
Well, I don't presume to be able to describe it properly. But to me, in my experience, it was obeying the kind of Gandhian experiences. If you or suggestions, if you want people to listen to you, you have to listen to them. If you want to know how people live, you have to go where they live. It was very, very visceral and balanced and equal, and quite the opposite of somebody standing on a stage lecturing. It was the very opposite, very much sitting in a circle. And that, of course, is the basis of women's movements, especially everywhere. Sitting in a circle, listening to each other's stories, discovering probably that what you thought you alone had experienced, other people have also experienced. And if we band together, we can do something about it. And that was the experience of that, for me, was first in India.
Gloria, right now, both India and the United States are facing immense challenges of misogyny or toxic masculinity, with hierarchies being imposed, women being shamed, told to stay at home. Our rights are shrinking right in front of our eyes, especially women are facing even more domestic violence and sexual abuse during COVID, because everyone is staying at home and women have to do all the work and then they get beaten up. But it's anyway pervasive outside COVID. It's just emphasized during COVID. And how are we going to take this on if we can't even meet each other and sit in circles? How are we going to take on, because it is so entrenched and it has become so much part of the ruling systems. And the very leaders we are electing embody this. So how do we challenge this?
Well, just to speak for my own country, part of the reason that we have this so-called, I've never called Trump president yet because he was not elected by majority vote, by the accident of our electoral college system. Most people, 6 million, he lost by 6 million votes. But he is accidentally the president because about a third of the country is in revolt against the changes you and I are discussing. So the good news is that in my country, the majority now agrees with the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the environmental movement, the gay and lesbian and transgender movement in terms of basic rights and what should happen. That's the good news. Okay, the bad news is that this means that the third of the country that feels deprived of an old hierarchy is in backlash. And they have elected, through the, as I was saying, the accident of our system, a president. So, I think that's helpful because otherwise we think that the president represents the majority, which isn't true. It's also good news to recognize that we, in the sense of the big social justice movements, do represent the majority of the country. And I hope that in the next election, we will be able to make that change. So, sometimes just before a change is the most dangerous time. The analogy for me is, as you point out, what we would call a battered woman, a woman in a situation of domestic violence. The time of maximum danger for her is just before or after she escapes, because she is escaping control. I think that's true of my country. It's a time of maximum danger, but also it's possible that we are about to be more free. And so we can't stop. We wouldn't tell a woman to go back into a dangerous home, and we will not either. But of course, as you describe in this pandemic, it's much more difficult. The analogy is no longer perfect because it's very difficult for an individual woman to leave her home. So we are striving to find all kinds of systems that women can signal in supermarkets when they go for food what their situation is, that the police and social workers and shelters are sensitized to this. And I hope that we stop talking about domestic violence as if it had no perpetrator. It's interesting, isn't it, that we talk about survivors of domestic violence, but we don't talk about the criminals who are perpetrating the violence.
Absolutely. In fact, unless we confront that, we are not even going to be able to change the hierarchies that we live with at every level of our life. So inside the home or outside the home. Because in your fantastic essay, If Hitler Were Alive and Whose Side Would He Be On, you've written this, that, first we learn to internalize the idea of a strong head of the family, taking all the decisions, whether he's right or wrong. And that becomes a sort of a comfort factor for us. And then we go out to look for the same strong bully or head of the family as the head of the state. And even if he's taking wrong decisions, we like the fact that he's strong. We don't care whether he's maybe taking wrong decisions. So we don't like the old concept of the gentle leader, the gentleman, and somehow it's changed into the strong man. And somewhere along the way that has happened. And in your experience, when did this shift begin to happen and how can we reverse it?
Well, I think that it is the very definition of patriarchy that men control women in order to control reproduction. How many children, what, to whom they belong, and so on. So patriarchy is the fundamental problem. And until we have democracy in the home, we're never going to have democracy truly outside the home. So it's the lack of democracy in the home is completely unacceptable unless there is equality there, and unless there is safety there. It's never going to be true outside the home.
True. And there's another thought that I had while thinking about all the issues which are confronting now. COVID, of course, teaches us that there is no such thing as hierarchy. COVID is taking on everybody, rich or poor, man or woman, black or white, brown, yellow, Dalit or upper caste. And yet the responses to COVID are so hierarchical, that we will target this population, saying they spread COVID, versus that population. Also, so-and-so people will be enclosed in a ghetto, or such and such people will not have access to food or to hospitals, and therefore we will create safety. And I don't know what your experience is in the United States, but in India, that is very much so right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, as you point out, that there is a fundamental message that no one can deny, which is that this disease does not recognize gender, caste, race, class, because they're made up. They're just made up. They're not real. And this COVID knows that we are all humans and that we are all vulnerable. And there's a huge lesson there. I mean, for instance, in my country, there's been a profound resistance to universal health care.
Yeah.
I think we have never had a better demonstration that my health and your, depends on everybody else's health. I think we will have a much easier time from now on. So there are lessons of it. And of course, the response to it is the old hierarchy too frequently, as you are so painfully describing. But the fundamental lesson that we are all humans and that these divisions of caste, class, gender, and so on are made up is profound and coming home to everyone. I have never seen such a sense of connection or an understanding in my country, for instance, of who are essential workers and who are not. The essential workers are not the guys on Wall Street. The essential workers are the people in hospitals and serving food and cleaning and nurses and so on. And there's a bill now in Congress to better reward them. I think the consciousness level has been greatly increased.
That reminds me, Gloria, that, to come back to friendship, you have taught me something, that seek friendship with the other. When you go out to give a talk, try and pair with somebody who's as different from you as possible, someone older, someone from a different caste, religion, class, age, country. And you did that yourself. Like, you deliberately sought out friendships which were different from you biologically in some ways. And how did that influence your politics, and what did that do to our movement, the feminist movement?
Well, I think some things are quite basic and kind of selfish in a good way. You know, for instance, it's clear to me that I don't learn while I'm talking. I learn while I'm listening. Hello. I don't learn from sameness. I learn from difference. So in a selfish way, if I want to learn, why would I hang out with people who are like me? You know, it just doesn't make sense. And I think there is a way in which we value sameness, but that has to do with literally with values, not with the way we got born in the conventional categories.
I have one last question to you, and then if you have any question for me, you can ask me. But basically today, I was just looking at the date, and it's the 20th of May in 2020. So, I was thinking that, for a 20-year-old today, what does the world look like? Because someone who was in their 20s in the 1945 to 1950, the world offered freedom. Everything, all hierarchies seem to be broken, feudalism, fascism, colonialism. There was a burst of freedom which led to so much creativity and equality in the world. And today, we don't know if it's going to be Orwellian or Brave New World, as JLF has called their conversation series. And so, what does 2050 mean? What does the end of the millennium mean? Where do you see us going as a human race, as a planet?
The truth is, I don't know. I mean, the future you're describing has to do with your independence movement. In my country, the 40s and the 50s were times of enormous conservatism. So, it depends where we are. But I think the most helpful thing to me is to realize that the future is composed of the next minute and the next day. Mm-hmm. If we start thinking about big generalities out there that we don't know, if we start thinking of shoulds, what should I do? It's more paralyzing, I think, than just thinking, okay, what can I do right now that reflects what I care about, what I hope for? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do the next day and the next? And to view it as a tree, which grows from the bottom up, not from the top down, and view our actions as the roots of the tree, which is the future.
Yeah, and if you have a question, you can ask me, but I want to show you something, which is a translation of your book in Hindi, done by Raj Kamal. The anthology I had done, As If Women Matter, we got it translated into Hindi. And there you are as a young person.
It's such an honor to be translated, and such an art form. Translation is such an art form. I think, we should I hope we give prizes to translators. It's amazing. All right, well, here's my question to you. You seem to me the bravest person I know. You could be, because you know my country as well as I do, and because you have lived here equally, you could be here and be safely objecting to what's going on in your country, instead of in the street with women's groups, handing out food that's going to the wrong people, handing it out to the right people. You are the bravest person I know. Where does that come from?
It comes from knowing people like you, knowing, being inspired by you or my father. My father went to jail as a 15-year-old because he believed in Gandhi, and he still wears homespun till this day. And he had lost the sense of fear for a bigger purpose. That's what Gandhi did. He set people free from fear, shame, or guilt. And I
Mm.
grew up in that ethos. So I think that basic sense of freedom came from have no fear, have no shame, have no guilt while I was growing up. And then it came through trial and error by experimenting with certain things and seeing how far could I go. I have endless curiosity, and sometimes that takes me into a situation which I have to just go forward. I can't go back. And then that gives me an education and courage, which gives me courage for the next moment, commitment to something which I believe can happen, like a more equal world between men and women, between classes and classes who are less privileged, and castes. I just like you, I believe there is no such thing as hierarchy. It can be a fairer and more equal world. And knowing you for these decades has been a big source, actually, for me. The friendship of you. To Sometimes you'll share an anecdote, and that time it seems very banal, and I'll say, "Oh, Gloria's saying it," and then I'll go and test it, and it's pretty true. And like something like when you said the tree doesn't grow from the bottom, from the top, it grows from the bottom. So I didn't realize it till I'm confronted with fascism. And
Mm.
then I feel that no, I can't let go, because we have to do what we can, not think about what we can do, because otherwise it'll be a minute too late. And I can't stand seeing people treated badly, oppressed in any fashion. And so I feel I'm a doer. And this is again something which I've learned from watching my father and his friends and all of that, the Gandhians and the socialists and all of that, but also you, because I have seen you live it that way. You keep talking and you say do. So there's a courage which comes from knowing each other, from our friendships.
All right. Well, okay. So I declare us a country, and I want to say to the people in government or officials or whoever who are trying to suppress what you and other justice workers are doing, that they should watch out, okay? Because you have a country that is worldwide, and we will protect you.
And you're my family of choice. So I'm very happy to belong to that country. And it's the Republic of Hope. And you're a hopeaholic, and so am I. And we will do something about the new phobias which are being created to create hierarchies, like Islamophobia, homophobia, uh, misogyny, all of this, racism,
Hmm.
casteism.
Yes, well, you are in a more dangerous place than I am, but I will try to bring our forces of friendship and movement to protect you and others there.
Thank you. And I think we can shift to questions, because there's people asking us questions. There's one from Sachdev Ramakrishnan, who says, "You've inspired generations of women who believe you to be a true friend." And people like Barbara and Marlo and Jane Fonda and Joy Behar, Cindy Lauder, Christian Amanpour. The list goes on and on. What is it about you that makes you so much a universal friend?
I have no idea. I think it's not universal. I mean, I'm not Trump's friend, but I think it's a family of shared values, which surpasses fame, class, nation. It's a circle, not a hierarchy, of shared values. And people who are drawn into the circle, as I am, feel loyalty to and a literal connection to others in the circle, and behave that way.
There's another question from a friend of mine who I used to know when I was posted to Iran. Now she lives in Amsterdam or near Amsterdam, Sepide. She says, can you elaborate on friendship is a country, especially when you beautifully don't believe in borders?
Yes, well, I'm eliminating physical borders and creating a kind of emotional, psychic, supportive country that we enter through friendship and trust and taking care of each other, being inspired by each other, kindness toward each other. So the boundaries that the borders are physical, and I guess I'm trying to eliminate physical boundaries, but to recognize that we do have adversaries. There are boundaries there. We are sometimes in danger, and we can help each other by the universality and the lack of boundaries of the world of friendship.
Linda McDonald asks, what are the most important elements of women to women feminist friendship?
Well, I would say talking and listening in equal proportions. More or less. I mean, you know, because there are moments when one person needs to talk more. I'm not saying all the time, but speaking your truth and listening to other people's truth. Helping each other in emergencies. That's very important. And pointing out when we make mistakes. You know, we also have to be honest with each other when we see the other person. You know, we may be right or wrong, but we have to at least say when we think the other person is making a mistake or saying something that hurts someone else, or, you know, so I guess honesty and listening are two hugely important qualities.
And Gloria, you know, one more thing which you've always said is that we've got to trust each other.
Yes, there's no trust is nothing on earth replaces trust. Not money, not nothing. and that trust comes from an experience of the other person that means you feel understood, you feel that they care about your welfare. No, trust is an incredible quality, and you know it's why what I feel about you. I trust you.
Same.
If you tell me I'm messing up, I know that I'm.
Sentences, yes. So there's another question from Om Prakash Parikh, who says, respected Gloria Steinem, conditions of women in our society is worse than the Western society, in spite of laws and democracy to protect them. How to change this?
Well, movements. I mean, we need individual and collective rebellion. That's what movements are for. You know, that's, you know, to change cruel hierarchies. So any way that the individual woman who is struggling and in trouble and in danger can reach out to someone, I mean, men too, usually it's women because we share experience, but there are men we trust too, can reach out and say, this is what's happening to me, this is what I need, how can you help me, what you can do. And we who are being spoken to need to act on that. Even if it's a small thing, to act on that as best we can and to communicate what that woman needs.
Beautiful. Kalyani asks, what difference do you see between global feminism and so-called white feminism?
Well, I think if white feminism doesn't exist because if it's feminism, it means all women by definition. So white feminism is a contradiction in terms.
What does feminism mean to you? How would you define feminism?
It means the belief, or the fact, I would say fact, that human beings are all human beings, that each of us is unique, and we come into the world as a unique combination of heredity and environment that probably could never have happened before or again. And each of us shares our humanity. The so-called categories of gender and race and caste and class and, you know, whatever are invented, which is why the COVID the lesson is with us. The COVID knows that those are invented, you know, and I hope that perhaps we can learn from that. So it's to me, it's a recognition of reality. We are each unique. We could never have happened before or again, and we share our humanity.
Beautiful. Umum asks, how can we use friendship as a tool to reduce the gap between genders and their perceived difference?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's a great question, because clearly we speak about gender because it's a category that we live with and that has been put upon us. But you and I also know very well that there are men, individual men who we trust and depend on more than we would some individual woman who, you know, who is not trustworthy or dependable. So the gender is absolutely not the most important category. We are all human.
And that takes me to a really interesting question by Vara Raturi. How to deal with men and women who are activists for other purposes, but don't take feminism seriously. In fact, make fun of the movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an individual question of trying to figure out, when you're talking to someone who is not taking feminism seriously, to try to make other parallels. You know, would you say that about race? Would you say, in my country, you know, would you say, talking about police violence against Black men, but not against Black women, for instance? Why is that? It's making those comparisons, I think. Jokes, cruel jokes that are made against females that would not be made against a racial group or a religious group. Making those parallels, I think, helps to raise consciousness.
An old friend of yours, Saida Hamid, asks, Gloria, do you think we will ever have a world without borders and boundaries?
Well, I think COVID knows that virus. There are no boundaries there, right? And in the response to it, also, there has been a recognition of boundarylessness. In looking for a vaccine, there is a recognition of boundarylessness. So there is some, I'm not saying that that is the be all and end all, but there is a lesson there. There is a very practical, realistic, day-to-day lesson. And I do think that we are beginning perhaps to see an Earth that is as it once was, which was without national boundaries, but with migratory paths. Now they may be on planes, or they may, you know, but that the Earth is covered with a network of migratory paths, and cultures are often more diverse and interesting where those paths cross. But there are no lines in the sand. There are no national boundaries, really.
Kritika asks, she's a fellow Smithy, and she says the University of Human Kindness is something that goes a long way. My question to you is, how do you think we can incorporate kindness as education early on and also sustained?
Mm. Well, it's interesting that to me that the experiments with babies and very small children show that babies and little children share food, for instance, and when they see someone else, a child sees someone else hurt, that you're actually, all of us are flooded with oxytocin, the hormone that is called the tend and befriend hormone, without which probably the human species could never have survived, without that impulse, to help someone, even if we don't know them, we see an accident, or if someone, male or female, holds a baby, we're flooded with oxytocin. So there is that tend and befriend hormone. And if we let that express itself rather than the culturally, politically learned boundaries that saying, no, that's not your affair, leave that person by the roadside or whatever. You might get sued if you try to help them. I don't know, whatever those things are. If we follow our natural empathy, and remember, the human species could not have survived without empathy, could not possibly have survived. If we follow that impulse, I think that we can preserve our sense of connection.
Debjani Mukherjee asks, Ruchira, your actions on contribution towards safety and respect for women in Delhi. Debjani, right now I'm just doing food relief work and some medical and hygiene kits to victims of sex trafficking, migrant women, BD workers in Delhi, Calcutta and Bihar, giving out food really and loading trucks. And I've had people from other organizations help me, like Village Care, Goonj, all kinds of people, Chef Vikas Khanna, all the way from New York. And I couldn't have done it alone. And it's a campaign called 1millionmeals.org, starting with the number 1, if you look it up. And, you can all help me get more food right now. That's a real crisis.
Yes, that's wonderful. So everyone listening can find this 1 million online, right? Do you want to explain that so that people can contribute?
Okay, it's called 1millionmeals.org. And it starts with the number 1. So don't write ONE, but the number 1. And then millionmeals.org, and you'll read everything about our campaign. And, I want to ask a question of Gloria. I know we have very little time left, but I can squeeze in maybe one more question. Gloria, can a feminist movement, you've always talked about laughter and friendship, and what are the essential features of a feminist movement? How is a movement created? We all want to keep creating movements, and you are the goddess in this.
No. Movements have no goddesses. No. Well, it's kind of one and several people at a time. It means talking to your neighbor. It means regular meetings. I remember in India, certainly women who went to the well together became a revolutionary group because they talked to each other about what their husbands were up to. And I think they got together and tied violent husbands to a tree, right, at some point. Anyway, it's speaking to the women that we have access to, telling the truth, listening to them, seeing what your shared interests are, and moving forward. But I'm glad you said the word laughter. Do you want to end there? Should I end there?
Yes, please.
Okay, because I only recently in my life discovered that laughter is the only free emotion. You can compel fear, obviously, when you're in danger. You can also compel love, because if you are dependent for long enough, you enmesh with your captor in order to survive. But you can't compel laughter. And my Native American folks here are very great about this because they have a god of laughter, actually. And laughter happens when two things come together and suddenly make a third. When you recognize something, it happens when you learn something. So it can't be compelled. It's the single free emotion. And a great guide is to remember never to go any place you can't laugh, including churches in my country. Right?
Are you religious? Are you religious?
No, of course not. No, I'm not religious. No. So that's, that the church is not, I mean, if it is a kind of church that tells you you can't laugh, it's a problem because they're suppressing freedom. So if you just remember never to go any place that doesn't allow you to laugh, you will be pursuing freedom because it is the only human emotion that cannot be compelled.
Fantastic. Namaste to you, Gloria. Thank you so much for this wonderful
conversation. And I'm trying to tell people here, because our Governor Cuomo here in New York State said, you and everyone else, you can't shake hands, because of the epidemic and so on. And he kept saying, too bad, that we don't have a way of greeting. I said, are you kidding me? How about a few 100,000 years of saying namaste? So maybe Americans will finally learn from India how to greet each other and salute the God in each other in a safe and respectful way.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much, Gloria, and thank you, Ruchira. That was such a beautiful, beautiful conversation about friendship and about laughter and so much more. And what I love most is the Republic of Hope. Can I subscribe for citizenship there? And I have long hair. I know I'm not. I've got a mustache, but I've got long hair, and I'd love to be part of the Republic of Hope. But
you just hoping to be part of the Republic makes you part of the Republic.
Thank you all for watching and being such a brilliant audience. Thank you to all our speakers, and we look forward to seeing you. Remember, do log on.